When most people think of Las Vegas, a few things can come to mind. Bright lights, neon signs, luxury hotels and casino, the entertainment capital of the world, people looking to double their odds on a game of chance, and of course, the most infamous mantra of this city, what happens in Las Vegas stays in Las Vegas. When we think of Las Vegas, we think of something differently. We think of people. Men, women, children, people looking for an answer, people looking for something more in their lives, people looking for Jesus. For over 15 years now, Praise Chapel Las Vegas has been co-laboring with Christ to serve this community and to reap a harvest in the name of the Lord. Throughout the years here at PCLV, we've always believed it's necessary to have a vision for our lives that lines up with the will of God. So each year that we've been here, we've prayed, we've fasted, we've cried out to the Lord and asked, give us direction for our lives, for our families, and for our church. And so from the beginning, God's shown us to build His church upon His name. As we continue the years on, we've learned to surrender ourselves to the will of God and expect something more for our lives than what we see in front of us, and keep our eyes on the prize through the midst of it all. We have also been called to step into the new and away from the old, and to build His house upon the rock. We are called to just do it, or as Pastor Mike Neville would say, go for it. We are standing our ground through the midst of everything upon the word of Jesus Christ, and we rejoice and we celebrate and look at what the Lord has done in our lives already. We guard what the Lord has entrusted us with already. We have surrendered hearts, ready to serve and be obedient to Him. And when God has shown us to awake our souls and be responsive to the Spirit within us. God's empowered us to be the unstoppable church, and this year for 2016, God's called PCLV and the city of Las Vegas to flourish.
Well, it was back in a World Conference of August of 2000 that in a hotel room that I felt the call of God to go to Las Vegas. I remember restless that night. I woke up around 3 in the morning and I just felt something in my spirit, and I remember getting on my knees and telling the Lord, if you want me to go out, then you got to give me a city. And I remember I felt it so good in my heart that it was Las Vegas. And He didn't speak it. It was just something in my spirit that I felt. And I remember just agreeing to it and saying, okay, Las Vegas it is. And I went home from that conference, and the following days, a couple of days after that, I called Pastor Donna Neville and shared what was on my heart and what happened in that hotel room. And so she asked me, well, what's on your heart? What city's on your heart? And I told her Las Vegas. And from there, she got excited. At first I thought she would say no because it was all about LA, winning LA, and I wanted LV, but she agreed with me, and so Las Vegas it was. And so in the Harvesters Conference that following year in 2001 in February, me and Maria were launched out to Las Vegas, Nevada. And we started to make our preparations and our plans, getting our kids ready. And then July of 2001, we moved out to Las Vegas, and that's when we started this venture of PCLV. Well, we went to the conference, they announced us, and it was a great day. Of course, a lot of cheering going on and excited about going out to Las Vegas. But for that time and moment, it was kind of hard to move. We grew up in LA all our lives, and to move into a different state, it's not just a different city, but a different state. It was kind of hard for my family and I. My kids didn't like it. My son didn't want to go. My daughter didn't want to go. My wife didn't want to go at first. But and then same thing with friends. Friends were saying, you're crazy. Why are you going to go to Las Vegas? Sin City. You're going to do nothing out there. And these are friends in the church that were telling me that, as well as core workers are saying, why don't you just stay here? You got friends here. Why are you going over there where you don't know anybody? So for those first moments of preparing before we moved out in July of 2001, it was kind of hard with family and friends, and And I was just wondering, is this really the decision that I wanted to make? But I really felt that in that hotel room that it was God's call. My wife had a peace about it, and I knew that the Lord would take care of the rest as far as my kids and family would understand, and friends would understand soon that, you know, that's where God wanted us to be. And so we packed up our bags, loaded up the truck, and we sailed out to Las Vegas. And from there on, doors just started to open. And so we went looking all over the city for a few days, looking for buildings, and buildings that we went to, they just didn't want a church there, or it was just too high, the cost, we couldn't afford it. And so I remember driving down Sahara Street, and my wife saw a sign that said for rent. And it was a nice building, a nice location, better than any of the buildings that we saw previously. And so my wife told me to pull over, and I'm thinking behind my mind, we can't afford this, there's no way. But I turned in just to say, okay, tell my wife, okay, let's go check it out. And so we drove in, and we kind of said, you know what, this is too expensive, babe. We can't afford this. You know, these buildings are a lot nicer than what we saw, and so let's just go home and just keep on looking. And I remember a man was coming out of the building, and my wife said, there's someone coming out of the building. Go ask him. And I said, babe, it's too expensive. And she kept on saying, well, just go ask. And so I remember parking the car, and so we got out of the car to go ask, and he was getting into his car, and so I said, oh, hopefully he just gets in his car and drives away. But then he got back out of the car and started walking back into the building, and so we ran into him and said, hey, can we check out the building? And he said, sure, and we checked it out, and it was very nice building, new carpet, new paint. It was a very clean and nice building, and I'm thinking behind my head, I said, we can't afford this. So I did ask him, how much is the rent? And he gave me the price, and I said, you know what, I'm so sorry. It was hundreds above what we can even afford. So I told him, you know, we can't afford that. We're a new church, we're just starting off, and so I'm sorry. And so we started to say our goodbyes, and he says, well, let me talk to the owner. He's a friend of mine. He was a Jewish man. And he says, just give me your number and I'll have him call you. And I said, okay. So I gave him my number, and thinking that this guy's not going to call me. So he ended up calling me a few days afterwards, and I introduced myself to him again, and he told me, you know, I said, I seen your building, your friend, your maintenance guy that was there would show me around, but when he gave me the rent, it's just way too much, and it's way above what we can afford. So, you know, I don't want to waste your time. You know, even if you went down a little bit, we couldn't afford it. And then he asked me, well, how much can you afford? And so I said, okay, I'm gonna give him a fair price, or at least what we can afford, and he agreed on it. And I said, oh, okay. And he goes, just don't tell anybody of the other tenants, because if they find out how much I gave you to you, then it's gonna stir up something. I said, believe me, I won't tell nobody. But he said, you know what, I'll give you this rent for this amount, and then to start you off, I'll give you 2 months free. And you know, I believe it was just all God. And so this was all over the phone. I went to meet him at the building. I gave him a deposit check. I met him for the first time. I just shook his hands, never filled out one bit of paperwork, never filled out anything. I gave him the check. He gave me the keys. He dropped it in my hands, and he says, go have church. And we've been having church for 15 years now.